The world stage is currently witnessing a multitude of significant events, and today we delve into some pressing economic concerns within the United States. You've undoubtedly encountered the alarming news reports. The national economy is facing significant headwinds, and the pressure is distributed unevenly across the nation. Certain states find themselves in a particularly precarious position, grappling with economic difficulties more intensely than their counterparts. The indicators are concerning, suggesting underlying weaknesses that could be exacerbated by broader economic downturns. Observers note mounting debts, reliance on volatile industries, and demographic shifts contributing to a sense of vulnerability in specific regions. This situation raises critical questions about the resilience of state economies and their capacity to weather potential storms. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for policymakers, businesses, and citizens alike as they navigate an uncertain economic landscape. We will explore these issues in depth, examining the factors that place some states at greater risk, and consider the potential ramifications should these vulnerabilities lead to more severe consequences. Stay with us as we unpack these complex economic narratives, aiming to provide clarity on which states might be most susceptible to economic instability. The conclusions from our analysis will be presented at the end of this video. Supporting our channel through subscriptions and likes is immensely important for us to continue bringing you this kind of analysis. It truly helps us grow and reach a wider audience. Have you ever stopped to consider the possibility that if a nationwide recession were to strike with sufficient force, particular states could be the first dominoes to fall, potentially collapsing under the economic strain? What unfolds when urban centers fall silent? Employment opportunities evaporate seemingly overnight, and citizens feel compelled to abandon their homes and communities in search of stability elsewhere? Which states are currently balancing on an economic tightrope, susceptible to crumbling under the immense weight of financial failure? The spectrum of vulnerability is wide, ranging from locales desperately struggling to maintain solvency to those witnessing the rapid erosion of cornerstone industries. These states confront a daunting array of challenges, issues potent enough to potentially trigger a complete economic decline, altering the lives of millions. The narrative of economic fragility isn't uniform. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of historical dependencies, policy decisions, and unforeseen global events. As we proceed, we'll dissect the specific circumstances contributing to the heightened risk in certain states, exploring the interplay of factors like crippling debt burdens, over-reliance on single industries, demographic shifts like population exodus, and inadequate infrastructure. The truth behind the precarious situations of these states might contain elements that surprise you, revealing deeper systemic issues that demand attention. We encourage you to stay tuned as we embark on this critical examination, aiming to shed light on the states most at risk and the potential cascading effects of their economic struggles. Let's begin with the 10th state on our list, California. It might seem counterintuitive, but you could be taken aback to discover that the world's fifth largest economy, a global powerhouse in innovation and culture, is perceived by some analysts to be teetering on the brink of significant economic difficulty. California, historically celebrated as the Golden State, a land brimming with opportunity and dreams, is currently contending with an economic crisis severe enough that a substantial recession could potentially trigger its collapse. What factors contribute to this vulnerability? The state's notoriously high cost of living acts as a significant barrier for many, making everyday necessities and housing increasingly unaffordable. This financial pressure contributes to staggering homelessness rates, a visible and complex problem plaguing its major cities and communities. Furthermore, California's economic structure exhibits an over-reliance on the technology and entertainment sectors. While these industries have fueled growth, they are also known for their volatility and susceptibility to market fluctuations and shifts in consumer demand. This dependence makes the state's overall economic health incredibly vulnerable to downturns within these specific fields. Consider this. Recent reports indicate that California's budget deficit has surged to an estimated $73 billion. This massive shortfall underscores the financial strain the state is under. Compounding this are significant layoffs within the tech industry, signaling instability in one of its key economic pillars. The widely discussed decline of Silicon Valley as the undisputed global tech hub, coupled with a shrinking middle class facing immense financial pressure, are all alarming signals. These aren't merely theoretical concerns. They are tangible cracks appearing in the foundation of the state's economy. Businesses and affluent residents are reportedly fleeing to states with lower tax burdens and more favorable business climates, further eroding California's revenue base. Those who remain, particularly lower and middle-income households, are left grappling with escalating poverty and diminishing opportunities. The critical question remains: can California's diverse, yet heavily strained economy withstand the immense pressure of a major recession? The confluence of high costs, industrial vulnerability, budget deficits, and demographic shifts paints a concerning picture. The resilience of the Golden State is being tested, and its ability to navigate these turbulent economic waters remains uncertain. We encourage you to watch this video until the very end, where we will offer concluding thoughts on these complex issues. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global audience. Moving to number 9, we examine Illinois. Have you ever contemplated just how dire a state's financial situation can become before it reaches a breaking point and starts to crumble? Illinois serves as a stark, real-world example of fiscal distress. It might shock you to learn that Illinois is burdened by one of the most severe pension crises in the entire country. The state faces unfunded pension liabilities that have ballooned to exceed an astonishing $140 billion. This colossal debt represents a significant drain on state resources and poses a long-term threat to its financial stability. That figure alone represents an enormous amount of debt, casting a long shadow over the state's future prospects. However, the financial woes don't cease there. Property taxes in Illinois are soaring, placing an additional heavy burden on homeowners and businesses alike, making the state less attractive for residency and investment. This financial pressure is reflected in demographic trends, as more people are leaving Illinois each year than are moving in, resulting in a net population loss. This exodus further strains the state's tax base and diminishes its economic vitality. Consider the state's economic engine, Chicago. Even this major metropolitan hub is not immune to the fiscal pressures, struggling with its own substantial budget deficit, reported to be around $1 billion. Adding to these concerns is the state's bond rating, which languishes among the lowest in the nation, signaling a lack of confidence from financial markets and making it more expensive for the state to borrow money. Now, imagine introducing the shock of a major recession into this already precarious mix. The potential consequences are alarming. With existing vulnerabilities, a significant economic downturn could easily send Illinois spiraling into an even deeper financial crisis. If businesses continue to flee due to high taxes and perceived instability, or if existing companies are forced to scale back operations and lay off workers, the state's economic foundation could erode rapidly. Illinois is undeniably teetering on a dangerous edge. Without significant fiscal reforms and a favorable economic climate, the state is positioned as one of the prime candidates to collapse, first, should a severe recession take hold. The combination of massive unfunded liabilities, high taxes, population decline, and struggling major cities creates a perfect storm of economic vulnerability. Let's turn our attention to number 8, New York. America's undisputed financial powerhouse, the Empire State, often sounds like it possesses an unshakable economic foundation. Home to Wall Street and a global center for commerce and culture, New York projects an image of immense wealth and resilience. It seems invincible, a state that has weathered countless economic storms throughout history. But did you know that even this mighty state harbors significant weaknesses, vulnerabilities that a severe recession could ruthlessly expose? The perception of strength often masks underlying fragilities. Consider Wall Street itself. Its volatile nature means that financial market downturns have an immediate and profound impact on the state's economy and tax revenues. Beyond the financial sector, the cost of living, particularly in New York City, is among the highest globally. Skyrocketing housing costs and everyday expenses place immense pressure on residents, making it increasingly difficult for middle and lower-income families to thrive. Rents in cities like NYC can consume more than half of an average person's paycheck, leaving little room for savings or discretionary spending. This economic strain contributes to a significant outmigration trend. As of 2023, estimates suggest that over 300,000 people moved out of New York, marking the largest population decline the state has witnessed in decades. This exodus includes not only middle-class families seeking affordability, but also high earners and businesses relocating to states with more favorable tax environments, further shrinking New York's vital tax base. This population shift directly impacts the state's budget. New York relies heavily on income taxes, particularly from its top earners, to fund its extensive social programs and ambitious infrastructure projects. With a diminishing number of high-income taxpayers and potential revenue shortfalls exacerbated by a recession, the state faces massive fiscal challenges. How long can New York sustain its characteristically lavish spending on social services and infrastructure improvements without facing a breaking point? Even the state's famed real estate market, a cornerstone of its economy, is exhibiting signs of strain. The commercial real estate sector, particularly office space, is grappling with a massive decline in demand and record-high vacancy rates, a trend accelerated by the shift towards remote work. This adds another layer of economic pressure. The convergence of Wall Street volatility, extreme living costs, population loss, reliance on specific industries, potential budget shortfalls, and a weakening commercial real estate market makes New York incredibly vulnerable. While it remains a global economic force, the Empire State is not immune to the forces that could trigger a major economic collapse if a severe recession hits. Stay with us as we continue to explore the states facing potential disaster. Next, at number 7, we look at Louisiana. One might initially assume that Louisiana's economy is relatively stable, buoyed by its rich cultural history, vibrant tourism sector, and significant natural resources, particularly in the oil and gas industry. The state evokes images of jazz music, unique cuisine, and bustling port cities. However, beneath this surface, you might be shocked to discover just how precarious Louisiana's economic situation truly is. A major factor contributing to this vulnerability is the state's deep dependence on the oil and gas sector. While this industry provides jobs and revenue, it is notoriously volatile and subject to global price fluctuations and shifts in energy policy. When oil prices dip significantly, or when production slows due to market conditions or regulatory changes, the state's economy takes a substantial hit. Did you know that nearly 10% of Louisiana's total gross domestic product originates directly from the oil and gas sector? This heavy reliance means that downturns in this single industry have widespread ripple effects across the entire state, impacting employment, state revenue, and overall economic activity. When global energy prices drop, or if a recession forces energy companies to cut back drastically on production and investment, the economic fallout for Louisiana is severe. This reliance is compounded by other significant challenges. The state faces crippling infrastructure issues, with aging roads, bridges, and coastal protection systems requiring massive investment. Furthermore, its coastal cities are exceptionally prone to frequent and devastating natural disasters, such as hurricanes and major flooding. A single major storm event can shut down entire cities, destroy billions of dollars in property value, displace populations, and cripple local economies for extended periods, further weakening the state's overall economic position and draining resources needed for recovery and development. Adding to these vulnerabilities is the sobering fact that Louisiana consistently ranks among the states with the highest poverty rates in the nation. Its unemployment rate often hovers above the national average, indicating persistent challenges in job creation and economic opportunity. Moreover, the state's healthcare and education systems are chronically underfunded, struggling to meet the needs of its population and hindering long-term human capital development. When a recession hits, these already vulnerable communities in Louisiana are inevitably the hardest hit. Many residents already struggle intensely to meet basic needs, like food, housing, and healthcare. While other states may have successfully diversified their economies over time, Louisiana remains heavily tethered to the fluctuating fortunes of the energy and tourism industries. When people stop traveling due to economic uncertainty, or when the oil industry falters, it doesn't take long for the state's fragile economic structure to begin unraveling. Would you be surprised to learn that Louisiana's state budget frequently struggles with significant deficits, even in relatively good economic times? If a recession drastically cuts into state revenue derived from energy taxes and tourism, the government could be forced to implement deep and painful cuts to vital public services, disproportionately affecting its most vulnerable citizens. This confluence of factors, dependency on volatile industries, infrastructure deficits, disaster vulnerability, high poverty, and systemic underfunding, could easily push the state to the brink. The ongoing issues with state debt and the reliance on just a few economic pillars suggest that a major economic collapse could be looming on the horizon if a severe downturn occurs. Continuing our examination, let's discuss West Virginia, coming in at number 6. The mountain state, renowned for its stunning natural landscapes and deep-rooted coal mining heritage, has historically faced its share of economic struggles. The state often evokes images of rugged beauty and tight-knit communities built around resource extraction. However, the question arises, how much worse could the situation become if the entire country enters a full-blown, severe recession? West Virginia's economy is characterized by an overwhelming reliance on a dying industry: coal. Coal, once the undisputed backbone of the state's economy, providing jobs and identity for generations, is facing a steep and likely irreversible decline due to environmental regulations, market shifts towards cheaper natural gas, and the rise of renewable energy sources. Consequently, the job opportunities intrinsically tied to the coal industry are disappearing rapidly, leaving entire communities economically stranded. Consider this startling fact. Nearly 60% of West Virginia's electricity generation still originates from coal-fired power plants. However, with the accelerating transition towards renewable energy nationwide, many of these aging plants are being shuttered, resulting in significant job losses for miners, plant workers, and those in related support industries. This decline in its primary industry creates a cascade of negative economic effects. To compound matters, West Virginia consistently ranks among the states with the highest poverty rates in the country. Did you know that nearly 17% of its residents live below the official poverty line? This indicates widespread economic hardship and limited opportunities for upward mobility for a significant portion of the population. Furthermore, the state is grappling with a serious population loss problem. It suffers from one of the highest outmigration rates in the United States, with thousands of people, particularly younger, educated individuals, leaving the state each year in search of better job prospects and economic opportunities elsewhere. In 2022 alone, over 22,000 people left West Virginia. This continuous exodus shrinks the state's population and, critically, its tax base. As the population dwindles, so does the revenue available to fund state services, further straining state finances. West Virginia already struggles with significant budget shortfalls and relies heavily on federal funding to support essential services. This dependence on federal aid makes the state particularly vulnerable, as these funds could be significantly slashed during a national recession when federal resources are also strained. What happens when a state's population is shrinking? Its major traditional industries are fading away, and new economic sectors haven't emerged at a sufficient pace to replace the lost jobs and revenue. The outlook appears bleak. Without significant economic diversification and investment in new industries, West Virginia could easily find itself overwhelmed by its economic fragility. The combination of industrial decline, population loss, high poverty, budget deficits, and reliance on potentially unstable federal funding creates a precarious situation. If a major economic downturn hits, West Virginia could collapse under the weight of these accumulated financial hardships, potentially becoming stuck in a deepening cycle of economic decline. The future looks challenging unless drastic changes and new economic strategies are implemented. At number 5, we arrive at Nevada. You might be shocked to learn that Nevada, the state famous for the dazzling neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip, bustling casinos, and world-class entertainment, often seen as a symbol of excess and prosperity, is far more economically fragile than its glittering facade suggests. While many picture Nevada as a thriving desert oasis fueled by tourism and gaming, its economy is heavily dependent on these very sectors, making it acutely vulnerable to economic downturns. Nevada's economic structure relies overwhelmingly on tourism and hospitality. When a recession hits, discretionary spending on travel, entertainment, and gaming is typically one of the first areas consumers cut back on. This makes Nevada's core industries exceptionally sensitive to economic shocks. We saw this play out dramatically during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism evaporated almost overnight, and the state's reliance on this sector was starkly exposed. Did you know that Nevada's unemployment rate skyrocketed to an unprecedented 30% in April 2020? This was the highest rate recorded in the entire nation at that time, highlighting the extreme vulnerability tied to its tourism-centric economy. In fact, nearly 20% of Nevada's total gross domestic product comes directly from tourism-related activities. With tourism and hospitality bringing in billions of dollars annually and supporting a vast number of jobs, it's no surprise that when these industries slow down significantly, the entire state feels the economic pain profoundly. Beyond its reliance on tourism, Nevada faces its own set of internal challenges. Like California, it grapples with skyrocketing housing prices, particularly in the rapidly growing Las Vegas and Reno areas, making affordability a major issue for residents. This is coupled with an increasing number of homeless residents, indicating significant social and economic strain. With the cost of living climbing faster than wages for many, more and more Nevadans are struggling to make ends meet. People in the state are often living paycheck to paycheck, with few financial safety nets to cushion them when a recession hits and jobs are lost or hours are cut. This lack of financial resilience among the population exacerbates the impact of any economic downturn. Furthermore, the state is also deeply dependent on federal funding for various programs and services. In a national recession, cuts to these federal funds are likely, which could further destabilize the local economy and strain state resources. The combination of extreme reliance on a volatile tourism industry, rising poverty rates, a fragile job market outside of hospitality, high housing costs, and dependence on federal aid places Nevada in a precarious position. How long can the state continue to rely so heavily on these vulnerable industries before it potentially spirals into economic ruin? The state's economic collapse could happen faster than many anticipate if the tourism industry faces another prolonged downturn worse than expected. Number 4 brings us to Alaska. Often romanticized as the last frontier, a vast expanse of breathtaking wilderness and rugged individualism, you might be surprised to learn that this remote state is facing a potential financial crisis that could push it towards the edge of economic instability. While renowned for its stunning natural beauty and abundant resources, Alaska's economy is overwhelmingly dependent on one volatile commodity: oil. Alaska's economic fortunes are inextricably linked to oil prices. Oil revenue accounts for over 80% of Alaska's unrestricted state revenue. This staggering dependence means that when global oil prices fluctuate, as they frequently do, the state's budget and overall economy are directly and significantly impacted. You likely already know how volatile the global oil market can be, subject to geopolitical events, shifts in demand, and production decisions made continents away. This inherent instability makes Alaska's reliance incredibly risky. When the price of oil falls sharply, so does Alaska's ability to fund vital public services, infrastructure projects, and state operations. We've witnessed the consequences of this dependence in recent history. During the 2014 oil price crash, Alaska's budget deficit ballooned dramatically, forcing painful cuts and difficult fiscal decisions. The state still hasn't fully recovered from that shock, and its budget remains under immense pressure. But the challenges don't end with oil dependency. Alaska is also grappling with an aging infrastructure system: roads, ports, pipelines, and public facilities that requires billions of dollars in repairs and upgrades, funds that are increasingly scarce due to fluctuating oil revenues. Furthermore, the cost of living in Alaska is exceptionally high, especially in its many remote communities where transportation costs for goods are exorbitant. This high cost of living puts a strain on residents and makes it difficult to attract and retain a diverse workforce. The state's dependence on a single industry, oil, makes it incredibly vulnerable to global market shifts beyond its control. But it gets worse. Alaska is also dealing with a concerning trend of population decline. Between 2019 and 2021, The state saw a net population decrease of over 10,000 people. As oil production slows or becomes less profitable, related jobs disappear, prompting residents, particularly younger workers, to leave the state in search of more stable employment elsewhere. This exodus further shrinks the tax base and diminishes economic activity. With less revenue coming in from oil and a smaller population paying taxes, state services, including crucial areas like public safety, education, and infrastructure maintenance, have faced massive cuts in recent years. You might think that Alaska's small population means these problems aren't severe, but the high cost of living combined with budget cuts creates significant hardship. What happens when a state's economy is heavily reliant on a single, volatile industry? Its infrastructure is crumbling, its cost of living is prohibitive, and its population is leaving. The future looks uncertain. Without significant diversification and a stabilization of its fiscal situation, Alaska could see things unravel quickly if oil prices fall further or if a major national recession hits. At number 3, we find New Mexico. It may surprise you that New Mexico, a state celebrated for its rich cultural tapestry, unique history, and stunning southwestern landscapes, is potentially on the brink of a serious financial crisis. While known for its vibrant art scene and natural beauty, the state's economy rests on a foundation that could prove unstable in the face of a significant economic downturn. New Mexico's economy is heavily based on industries like oil, natural gas, and government spending, particularly federal dollars. This reliance creates vulnerabilities. Guess what happens when the volatile oil market suffers a downturn? New Mexico's economy feels the impact directly and severely. Fluctuating oil prices can lead to significant budget shortfalls and economic instability, as seen in recent years. But the reliance on potentially volatile sectors isn't the only concern. New Mexico consistently struggles with one of the highest poverty rates in the entire United States. Did you know that nearly 20% of its population lives below the federal poverty line? This indicates widespread economic hardship and limited opportunities for a large segment of its residents. This high poverty rate is intertwined with the state's rankings near the bottom nationally in critical areas like education and healthcare outcomes. These systemic challenges hinder workforce development and put additional strain on the state's economy and social services. Furthermore, similar to several other states on this list, New Mexico has been grappling with a serious outmigration problem. People, particularly younger and educated individuals, are leaving the state in search of better economic opportunities elsewhere. In fact, between 2010 and 2020, New Mexico lost over 30,000 residents to net migration. This steady exodus shrinks the state's tax base, reducing the revenue available to fund essential services and address its pressing social and economic issues. With fewer people paying taxes, the state's revenue continues to drop, creating a growing gap between its budgetary needs and the resources required to provide adequate services for its remaining population. The economic future for New Mexico looks increasingly grim. Its heavy dependence on fluctuating oil and gas revenues and federal spending, combined with high poverty, poor social indicators, and a declining population, creates a precarious situation. What occurs when a state's primary economic drivers are shrinking? Its population is fleeing, and it lacks the resources to invest in education and healthcare? The answer isn't encouraging. A national recession could easily send New Mexico into an economic tailspin, exacerbating its existing problems and potentially leading to a deeper crisis. Number 2 on our list is Mississippi. This southern state, often overlooked in national economic discussions, might be one of the most vulnerable if the U.S. economy faces a significant recession. While possessing a unique cultural heritage and natural resources, Mississippi consistently struggles with deep-rooted economic challenges that place it in a precarious position. You might not expect it, but Mississippi faces a trifecta of issues: pervasive poverty, persistently low wages, and a shrinking workforce. The state consistently ranks as having one of the lowest median household incomes in the United States. This means that many Mississippians are already living paycheck to paycheck, with little financial cushion to weather an economic storm. Guess what? Mississippi also ranks at or near the bottom nationally for key indicators like education attainment and healthcare access. These systemic weaknesses make it incredibly difficult for residents to climb out of poverty, acquire new skills, and participate fully in the economy. Poor educational outcomes limit workforce potential, while inadequate healthcare access leads to lower productivity and higher social costs. This creates a cycle that is hard to break and makes the state even more susceptible to economic shocks. And here's the kicker. Like several other states we've discussed, Mississippi has been losing population for years. Thousands of residents, often seeking better job opportunities and higher wages, leave the state annually. Between insert relevant years if available, e.g. 2010 and 2020, Mississippi experienced a net population loss of insert approximate number if available people. This outmigration results in a shrinking workforce and further erodes the state's already limited tax base. As a result, the state government faces increasing difficulty funding essential services and investing in economic development initiatives. With a weak job market offering limited options, particularly in higher-paying sectors, Mississippi could find itself in serious trouble if a national recession deepens and triggers further job losses. How long can a state with such deeply entrenched issues of poverty, low wages, poor social indicators, and population decline keep its head above water? A significant economic downturn could magnify these existing problems, potentially pushing Mississippi towards the brink of collapse. The state might be forced to make devastating cuts to already underfunded services, further harming its most vulnerable populations and potentially accelerating the cycle of decline. Finally, at number 1, we arrive at Hawaii. It might seem unbelievable, but you'd be surprised to learn that even Hawaii, the tropical paradise many dream of visiting or retiring to, is struggling significantly economically and is highly vulnerable to collapse. Its image of pristine beaches and idyllic lifestyle masks deep-seated economic fragility. Hawaii's economy is overwhelmingly, almost singularly, dependent on tourism. While this industry brings in revenue and jobs, this extreme reliance makes the state exceptionally susceptible to external shocks. Guess what happens when global recessions hit, or events like pandemics disrupt travel? Hawaii's economy feels the impact almost immediately and acutely. Tourism numbers plummeted during the 2020 pandemic, crippling the state's primary economic engine. While tourism is recovering, the industry remains a volatile source of income, heavily influenced by global economic conditions, travel trends, and unforeseen events. This dependence is a major vulnerability, but Hawaii's challenges extend far beyond its reliance on tourism. Here's another shocking fact. Hawaii consistently has one of the highest costs of living in the entire country. Sky-high housing prices, driven by limited land availability and high demand, are particularly burdensome. Combined with expensive groceries, utilities, and transportation, the cost of living makes it incredibly difficult for average residents to make ends meet. With limited job opportunities outside the often lower-paying tourism and service sectors, residents are increasingly finding it impossible to afford living in their home state. In fact, this crushing cost of living has led to a significant outmigration trend. Many residents, including native Hawaiians, have been forced to leave the state to seek affordable living and better economic prospects elsewhere, primarily on the U.S. mainland. What happens when a state is so heavily dependent on an inherently unstable industry like tourism? Its cost of living is prohibitively high for its own residents, and its population is leaving as a result. The economic impact could be devastating. A downturn in tourism, combined with the high cost of living and population loss, creates a perfect storm for economic crisis. The state faces challenges in funding essential services and investing in diversification due to its narrow economic base and strained budget. Hawaii may be a paradise in perception, but its economic reality is far more precarious. A major recession could severely impact its tourism lifeline, potentially leading to widespread job losses, business closures, and increased hardship for its residents, pushing the state towards a dangerous economic edge. There you have it, a sobering look at 10 states that analysts suggest could be perilously close to the brink of collapse should the United States enter a significant recession. The challenges these states face, from crushing debt and over-reliance on volatile industries, to population decline, pervasive poverty, and crumbling infrastructure are complex and deeply ingrained. While each state's situation is unique, they share common threads of vulnerability that could be dangerously exposed by a national economic downturn. With the right combination of negative economic shifts, these states could indeed be the first to fall, potentially triggering wider consequences. The economic health of individual states is intrinsically linked to the nation's overall stability, and the struggles highlighted here underscore the importance of addressing systemic issues and fostering resilience across the country. This exploration reveals that even states perceived as economic powerhouses or idyllic destinations are not immune to underlying fragilities. Thank you for joining us on our channel for this critical analysis. If you found this content eye-opening and informative, please remember to like this video, share it with others who might find it relevant, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth discussions on pressing economic and political issues. Your support is vital and helps us continue to bring more content like this to you. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you stay updated on all our future releases. We appreciate you watching.